The signal came on a Tuesday afternoon, Earth Standard Time. Deep Space Monitoring Station Kepler-7 picked it up first, a repeating transmission that made no sense until the linguistics AI finally cracked the pattern. It was a cry for help, broadcast across every frequency, imaginable, desperate, and raw. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the monitoring room, watching the translated text scroll across her screen. The message was simple and terrifying. Anyone who can hear this, we are dying. They consume our worlds. They cannot be stopped. We have no warriors. We have no weapons. Please, if there is anyone in the dark who knows how to fight, help us. For 50,000 years, the galactic community had lived in peace. 1,200 species had grown together, sharing knowledge and resources across millions of worlds. They had no armies because they had no wars. Violence was something their historians studied in ancient texts, a primitive behavior their ancestors had evolved beyond. Now something from the galactic rim was eating them alive, and they had no idea how to stop it. Earth's unified government called an emergency session. The debates lasted 36 hours. Some argued humanity should stay hidden, reveal themselves to the galaxy only when they were ready. Others said this was humanity's chance to join something greater than themselves. A few pointed out the obvious. If these aliens were overrun, whatever was killing them might eventually reach Earth. In the end, Admiral James Cortez made the decision simple. They asked for warriors, he said. We have warriors. They asked for people who know how to fight. We know how to fight. Maybe we know too well, but if we can save them, we should try. The first expeditionary force assembled in 3 weeks. 50,000 soldiers, 3 carrier groups, 400 fighter craft, and enough firepower to crack a small moon. They loaded supplies, ran final checks, and activated the experimental FTL drives that Earth scientists had only recently perfected. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy, not with handshakes and treaties, but with gunfire and steel. The journey took 6 days. They emerged in the Velkari system to find it burning. 3 planets were under siege by creatures that looked like nightmares made flesh, the Zilthar. They were organic ships, living things that moved through space like sharks through water, consuming everything in their path. The Velkari, a species of crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns, were fleeing their own homeworld in whatever craft they could find. Admiral Chen, now commanding the fleet, opened a channel to the Velkari. This is the Human Expeditionary Force responding to your distress call. We're here to help. Get your civilians clear. We're engaging the enemy. There was a long pause. Then a Velkari voice came through, trembling with something that might have been hope or horror. You came. You actually came. But what are you? Your ships. They're covered in weapons. What kind of species builds ships like that? Chen didn't answer. There wasn't time. She gave the order, and humanity's first battle in alien space began. The Zilthar had never faced resistance before. For 200 years, they had swept through the galactic rim, consuming peaceful species that couldn't even comprehend fighting back. They attacked the human fleet the way they attacked everything, a simple, overwhelming charge meant to tear apart defenseless prey. They learned quickly that humans were not prey. Railguns opened fire first, turning Zilthar bioships into expanding clouds of frozen flesh. Missiles followed, each one guided by AI systems that tracked targets faster than organic minds could process. Human fighters swarmed like angry hornets, cutting through Zilthar formations with precision that came from thousands of years of warfare. The Zilthar tried to adapt, tried to surround and overwhelm, but every tactic they used, humans had seen before and had developed 3 counters for. The battle lasted 72 hours. When it ended, the Zilthar were broken. Their fleet was destroyed, and the few survivors fled back into dark space. The Velkari homeworld was saved. But when Admiral Chen's ship landed to meet with Velkari leaders, She saw something unexpected in their light patterns. It wasn't gratitude, or not just gratitude. It was fear. The Velkari Prime Speaker approached Chen slowly, his crystalline body flickering with colors Chen's translator struggled to interpret. "You saved us," he said finally. "But I must ask, what are you? Your people move like hunters. Your eyes face forward like predators. Your ships exist only to kill. What kind of world creates beings like you?" Chen took a breath. She had rehearsed this moment in her head dozens of times during the journey. "We come from a planet called Earth. It's a Class 12 world. High gravity, competitive evolution, extreme weather. We spent most of our history fighting each other because, well, that's what humans do. We fight. We're good at it. Too good, maybe." The Prime Speaker's colors shifted to something dark and troubled. "Class 12? I didn't know life could even survive on worlds like that. And you fought each other? Your own species?" "For thousands of years," Chen admitted. "We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. But we got better. We learned. Now we try to use what we are for something good." The Prime Speaker was quiet for a long moment. Then his colors pulsed with a single question that would echo across the galaxy in the days to come. "Are we safer with you here, or were we safer before we called?" Chen didn't have an answer. She wasn't sure anyone did. News of humanity's arrival spread through the galactic community faster than light itself. Within days, every species knew that someone had answered the distress call. Within weeks, they knew exactly what humanity was, and the knowledge terrified them. The Galactic Council called an emergency session on their homeworld of Celestia Prime. Delegates from hundreds of species gathered to watch the combat footage from the Velkari system. They watched in silence as human weapons tore through Zilthar bioships. They watched human soldiers move with coordinated precision that seemed almost psychic. They watched humans risk their lives to save Velkari civilians, throwing themselves into danger with a casual bravery that made no evolutionary sense. Council Speaker Telmara of the Hesht spoke first, her 6 arms trembling. "These humans evolved on a death world, a genuine Class 12 death world. I've read the reports. Their planet has weather that kills, animals that hunt them, diseases that wiped out millions before they developed medicine. They have natural toxins in their food that they consume for pleasure. They call it spicy food and alcohol, and laugh when it burns their throats." Another delegate stood, a floating gas being named Wurix. "But that's not what frightens me most. I've reviewed their historical databases, the ones they freely shared with us. They've fought over 20,000 documented wars. They've killed more of their own species than the Zilthar have killed of ours. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets, and they've built hundreds of them. They call this period of their history the Cold War and consider it a time of relative peace." The chamber erupted in panicked discussion. Some delegates demanded humanity leave immediately. Others argued they needed human protection. Still others suggested studying human military technology, a suggestion that was met with horror from traditionalists who believed weapons themselves were immoral. Admiral Chen attended the session at the Council's invitation. She stood at the center of the vast amphitheater, surrounded by aliens who looked at her the way prey animals looked at wolves. She understood. To them, she was a monster wearing a friendly face. "I know what we look like to you," Chen said quietly, her voice carried by translation devices to every corner of the chamber. "We're dense and heavy because our world has high gravity. Our eyes face forward because our ancestors were hunters. We're violent because everything on our world was violent, and the peaceful ones died out millions of years ago. We are, by your standards, nightmares." She paused, meeting the gazes of as many delegates as she could. "But here's what you need to understand. We didn't choose to be this way. We were shaped by our world the same way you were shaped by yours. The difference is, our world taught us to survive things yours never had to. And now something is trying to kill you, and you need people who know how to survive. Telmara's voice cut through the murmurs. But at what cost? You saved the Valkyrie, yes. But you also showed the entire galaxy what war really looks like. Our children are having nightmares about your ships. Our people are questioning whether peace is even possible anymore. You've broken something in us, something that can never be fixed. Chen felt the weight of those words. She had known this was coming, but it still hurt. I'm sorry for that. Truly. But the Zilthar broke it first. They just did it quietly, world by world, while you convinced yourselves it couldn't happen to you. Meanwhile, human forces were establishing defensive perimeters around vulnerable worlds. Soldiers set up bases, ran training exercises, and tried to interact with local populations. The cultural gaps were enormous and often painful. Private Marcus Webb tried to explain the concept of a strategic retreat to a group of Zilthan civilians. They were a species that had never experienced conflict and couldn't understand why anyone would choose to run from danger. It's not cowardice, Marcus explained for the 5th time. It's tactics. You fall back to regroup and choose better ground. The Zilthans stared at him with their large, innocent eyes. But running means others die in your place. How can you live with that? Marcus had no answer that would make sense to them. How could he explain that in war, someone always died, and the goal was to make sure it was the enemy more than you? These people had never learned to think like that. He wasn't sure if he envied them or pitied them. Other interactions went better. Dr. Sarah Kim worked with Valkyrie scientists to improve their medical technology. The Valkyrie were amazed by human resilience, how quickly they healed, how much damage they could survive. Your body is designed to take punishment, one scientist observed. It's like you expect to be hurt and plan accordingly. That's exactly right, Sarah replied. On Earth, you don't survive by being fragile. Our bones are dense, our blood clots quickly, and our immune systems fight like they're at war, because on our world, they always were. But the real test came when the Zilthar attacked again. This time they hit 4 worlds simultaneously, forcing human forces to split up. Chen made the hardest decision of her career. She trained alien volunteers to fight alongside human soldiers. It was the galaxy's first mixed-species military force, and it was chaos. The aliens froze under fire. They couldn't understand concepts like acceptable casualties or collateral damage. When human soldiers advanced under fire, aliens thought they were witnessing suicidal insanity. When humans gave covering fire while others retreated, aliens couldn't process the trust required. The worst moment came during the defense of Tarmal. Human Lieutenant Jackson made the call to level an entire district with artillery to stop a Zilthar breakthrough. It worked. The line held. But 300 alien civilians who couldn't evacuate in time died in the bombardment. The galaxy watched the footage in horror. Humans watched it in grim silence. Both reactions were right. Both reactions were necessary. And that gap between them would only grow wider in the days to come. The incident at Tarmal broke something in the galactic community. The images of the destroyed district played on every news feed across hundreds of worlds. 300 civilians dead in an instant, killed not by the Zilthar, but by their supposed protectors. Human Lieutenant Jackson tried to explain at the hearing, kill 300 to save 900 million, but the logic felt cold and cruel to species who had never needed to make such calculations. The Galactic Council fractured into 3 factions almost overnight. The integrationists, led by the Valkyrie, argued that humanity was necessary. They had seen death up close and understood that sometimes violence was the only answer to violence. The isolationists, led by the Hesht and several other species, demanded humanity leave as soon as the Zilthar were defeated. They believed the galaxy could return to peace if the humans just went away. taking their weapons and their brutal logic with them. But it was the third faction that worried Admiral Chen most. The opportunists operated quietly. Without official declarations or public speeches, they simply began studying human weapons. They reverse-engineered captured equipment. They downloaded human tactical databases. They sent delegates to Earth offering trade deals that were really just excuses to learn military technology. Peace had kept the galaxy safe for 50,000 years, but now the opportunists wondered, what if peace was only possible because no one had ever truly threatened them before? The Zilthar seemed to sense the galaxy's division. They launched coordinated attacks on 7 worlds at once, stretching human forces to the breaking point. Chen had to make impossible choices about which worlds got protection and which ones had to hold out on their own. She trained more alien volunteers, but the cultural barriers remained vast and deadly. On the world of Keshtar, a human sergeant named Maria Santos tried to teach a squad of Thren how to hold a defensive position. The Thren were a gentle species with soft fur and large eyes, evolved from herd animals that had never known predators. They couldn't understand why anyone would stand and fight instead of running to safety. "Because if we run, there's no safe place left," Maria explained, her voice rough from days without sleep. "The enemy doesn't stop. They keep coming until you stop them or they stop you. That's how war works." One of the Thren, a young male named Kellis, stared at her with something like horror. "But you've lived your whole life knowing this. Your whole species has. How do you bear it? How do you wake up each day knowing that violence is always waiting?" Maria didn't have a good answer. She had never thought about it that way. For humans, danger was just part of existence. You learned to live with it, to manage it, to beat it when you could and survive it when you couldn't. But for these aliens, violence was a new nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The breaking point came during the defense of Celestia Prime itself. The Zilthar launched a massive assault on the Council homeworld, trying to behead the galactic government in one strike. Human forces fought desperately, but the enemy had adapted their tactics. They were learning, becoming more dangerous with each battle. Commander Jackson, the officer from the Tarmal incident, found himself in an impossible situation. A Zilthar bioship had crashed into the capital city and was releasing spores that would consume everything within kilometers. The only solution was a tactical nuclear weapon, small, precise, but still nuclear. It would kill 40,000 civilians who were trapped in the contamination zone. Or he could wait for evacuation and let the spores spread, which would kill 900 million across the planet. Jackson made the call. The bomb detonated, turning the infected district into glass. The Zilthar spores were destroyed. Celestia Prime was saved, and Jackson became the most hated human in the galaxy. The protests started within hours. Aliens flooded the streets demanding humanity leave. They called humans murderers, monsters, Deathworlders who brought only destruction. Some protests turned violent, the first alien-on-alien violence in recorded history, as integrationists fought isolationists over whether humanity should stay or go. Admiral Chen received contradictory orders from Earth. The civilian government wanted her to respect the Council's decision if they voted to expel humanity. The military leadership insisted she stay and finish the job. And in the chaos, a small group of human officers approached her with a proposal that made her blood run cold. General Marcus Webb, commander of ground forces, laid out the plan in Chen's private quarters. "The Council is paralyzed. Half of them want us gone, the other half can't agree on anything, and meanwhile people are dying. We could fix this, Sarah. One quick operation. We take control of the Council, establish martial law, and run this war properly. Once the Zilthar are beaten, we hand power back. Simple and clean." Chen stared at him in disbelief. "You're talking about a military coup, a takeover of the galactic government." "I'm talking about saving lives," Webb shot back. How many aliens have died while the council debated? How many more will die because they're too scared to make hard decisions? We know how to win this war. We just need the authority to do it. No, Chen said flatly. Absolutely not. We came here to help, not to conquer. Webb's expression hardened. Then you're letting them die for political correctness. I won't do that. Some of us won't. He left, and Chen immediately sent a priority message to Earth. But communications took time across interstellar distances, and Webb moved fast. Within 48 hours, forces loyal to him, soldiers who believed the galaxy needed humanity's strength more than it needed its own freedom, staged a coup on Celestia Prime. They called themselves the Guardian Corps. They arrested council members who resisted and placed the others under protective custody. They established military law across the capital and sent forces to key systems. And they did it all while broadcasting a simple message. The galaxy is at war. War requires warriors. We are here to protect you, whether you want it or not. Chen mobilized loyal forces to stop them, but it was too late. The galactic community split again, this time into supporters and opponents of Guardian Corps rule. Some species welcomed the stability and protection. Others formed resistance movements, downloading human guerrilla warfare tactics and using them against their supposed protectors. And in the chaos, while humans fought humans and aliens learned to kill each other, the Zilthar continued their advance. The galaxy had descended into exactly the kind of violence it had avoided for 50 millennia, and humanity, the species that came to save them, had brought it all down. The galaxy learned to make weapons in 3 months. It took humanity thousands of years to perfect the art of killing, but when desperate species had access to human databases and human examples, they learned fast, too fast. The Targul, a species of large herbivores who had lived in peace for 12,000 years, built the first alien railgun. They used it to defend their homeworld from Guardian Corps occupation forces. 17 humans died in the attack, and the Targul celebrated their first military victory with a mixture of pride and shame that their own philosophers couldn't reconcile. The Hesht developed chemical weapons based on downloaded human designs. They had fled Guardian Corps control and established a resistance in the outer colonies. When Guardian Corps ships tried to retake those colonies, they were met with toxic gas that ate through armor and flesh. The Hesht resistance leader, a female named Kessa, broadcast a message afterward. You taught us to fight. Now suffer your own lessons. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the galaxy tear itself apart from her flagship, the Prometheus. She commanded forces loyal to Earth's civilian government, soldiers who believed in the original mission, protect the galaxy, then go home. But they were fighting on 3 fronts now, against the Zilthar, against Webb's Guardian Corps, and sometimes against alien resistance groups who couldn't tell the difference between one human and another. Chen's second officer, Commander Liu, brought the latest casualty reports. We lost 2 frigates today, one to Guardian Corps fire, one to a Heshti mine. They're using our own tactics against us. Good, Chen said quietly. That means they're learning to defend themselves. That was supposed to be the point. Liu gave her a doubtful look. Was it? Because from here, it looks like we've destroyed the most peaceful civilization in galactic history. Chen had no answer to that. Every day she questioned whether answering that distress call had been humanity's greatest mistake. But she couldn't change the past. She could only try to minimize the damage in the present. The personal cost weighed on her more than the strategic situation. General Marcus Webb had been her friend for 20 years. They had served together, fought together, saved each other's lives more times than she could count. Now she was planning an assault to retake Celestia Prime from him, and she knew it might end with one of them dead. Webb, meanwhile, ran the Guardian Corps territories with brutal efficiency. He established safe zones around vulnerable worlds. He organized supply lines. He trained alien soldiers properly, pushing them hard, accepting no excuses. His methods were harsh, but they worked. Worlds under Guardian Corps protection survived when others fell, and that success made him dangerous because he could point to the results and say he was right. Private Maria Santos found herself on the front lines of a battle she never expected, humans fighting humans in alien space. Her unit was ordered to retake the colony world of Vex Prime from Guardian Corps control. She knew soldiers on the other side, had trained with them, had shared drinks and stories with them. Now, she was supposed to shoot them. The battle for Vex Prime lasted 3 days. It was the first time humans had fought each other since the Unification Wars 30 years ago, and both sides remembered those lessons well. They used every dirty trick, every clever tactic, every bit of knowledge gained from centuries of human warfare. The aliens caught in the middle watched in horror as humanity showed what it really meant to fight without restraint. Maria's squad cornered a Guardian Corps position in a ruined building. The enemy sergeant called out from behind cover, "Santos? That you?" She recognized the voice. Jackson. The man from Tarmal, the one who had made the hard call with the artillery. The one who had saved millions by killing hundreds. "Yeah, it's me." "Then you understand why we're doing this," Jackson said. "The Council couldn't protect anyone. We can. We're saving them, Maria." "By conquering them? By taking away their choice?" She kept her rifle trained on his position, even as her heart hammered in her chest. "They don't know how to make the right choices. They're children playing at government while their worlds burn. Someone has to be the adult. And you decided it should be us? You decided humanity knows best?" Maria's voice cracked. "We came here to help, not to rule." "What's the difference?" Jackson shouted back. "If the result is the same, dead aliens don't care whether we helped or ruled. They just care that they're dead." Neither of them fired. They stayed frozen in that stalemate until orbital bombardment forced both sides to evacuate. Maria would think about that conversation for the rest of her life, because she didn't know if Jackson was wrong. Elsewhere in the galaxy, something worse was happening. The opportunist species had been busy. They hadn't just copied human weapons, they had improved them. The Xel-Noth, a species of brilliant engineers, had developed kinetic bombardment platforms that made human railguns look like toys. The Krath, natural chemists, had created biological weapons that terrified even the humans who saw the specs. And worst of all, some species were talking to the Xilthar. The Meridian Collective, a group of isolated worlds, had sent envoys to negotiate. They offered tribute and submission in exchange for survival. The negotiations lasted 6 hours before the Xilthar consumed the envoys and continued their advance. But the attempt itself showed how far the galaxy had fallen, from unified peace to desperate deals with monsters. Admiral Chen prepared her fleet for the assault on Celestia Prime. She had enough loyal forces to take the capital, but it would be bloody. Guardian Corps had fortified the world extensively, and Webb was too good a commander to make easy mistakes. The battle would devastate the very world they were fighting over. Before the operation launched, Chen received a message from Webb. It was text only, encrypted on their old private channel from years ago. "Sarah, I know you think I'm wrong. Maybe I am. But I'm not crazy and I'm not evil. I'm just trying to save as many lives as possible with the tools we have. You taught me that. Take the action that saves the most people, even when it hurts. I wish we didn't have to be enemies. But if we do, I'll fight you as hard as I've fought everyone else, because that's what warriors do. Good luck, old friend." Chen stared at the message for a long time. Then she wrote back, "I know you believe you're right. That's what makes this tragic instead of simple. See you on the other side, Marcus, one way or another." The Prometheus prepared for battle, its weapons hot and ready. But before Chen could give the order to jump to Celestia Prime, every alert on her ship started screaming at once. Deep space sensors had detected a massive Xilthar fleet entering known space. It wasn't heading for any border world or isolated colony. It was heading directly for the Sol system, for Earth itself. The Xilthar had finally done what no human enemy ever had. They had found humanity's home, and they were coming to burn it down. The call went out across every human comm channel in the galaxy. Earth was under attack. The Xilthar had tracked humanity's origin point and sent everything they had. 3,000 bioships, the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. If Earth fell, humanity's presence in the galaxy ended. And maybe, the Xilthar calculated, without their warriors, the galaxy would return to being easy prey. Admiral Chen didn't hesitate. She broadcast on all frequencies, to Guardian Corps and Loyalist forces alike. This is Chen to all human vessels. Earth is under attack. I don't care what side you're on. I don't care if we were enemies 5 minutes ago. Our home is burning. We're going to save it. Anyone who wants to help, follow the Prometheus to Sol system. Everyone else can sort out their politics after our families are safe. General Marcus Webb responded within seconds. Guardian Corps fleet acknowledging. We're coming. All ships. Maximum burn to Sol system. We'll deal with our differences later. Right now, we're all just humans defending home. The human fleets began converging on Earth from across the galaxy. But they weren't alone. The Velkari, who owed humanity their survival, sent their fastest ships. The Targol resistance, despite fighting Guardian Corps days before, pledged their newly built warships. Even the Hesht, who had demanded humanity leave, sent a small fleet with a simple message: "You answered our call. We answer yours." The journey took 3 days at maximum FTL. Chen used every moment to coordinate with Earth's defense forces and plan the battle. But she also sent encrypted messages to Earth's leadership, messages that terrified her even as she composed them. If we can't stop them conventionally, you need to be ready to use everything. Yes, everything. I know what I'm asking, but if Earth falls, humanity dies. Make the preparations. Pray we don't need them. Earth had been preparing for this moment since the first reports of the Xilthar reached home. The planet had been at peace for 30 years, but humans never forgot how to make weapons. In secret facilities, they had maintained the old arsenal: nuclear weapons, biological weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, and things worse than all of those. Things humanity had promised itself it would never use again. But survival made promises meaningless. The human fleets arrived at Sol system to find Earth's defense force already engaged. The Xilthar had hit every inhabited planet and station at once, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Mars' colony was burning. The orbital stations around Jupiter were gone. Earth itself was surrounded by a sphere of Xilthar bioships that tightened like a noose. Chen's fleet crashed into the enemy formation without slowing. The Prometheus led the charge, its railguns tearing holes in the Xilthar lines. Behind her, hundreds of human ships followed, fighting with the desperation of people defending their last safe place. Guardian Corps forces hit from another angle, and for the first time since the split, both human factions fought in perfect coordination. Old training and shared tactics made them deadly even when scattered across light seconds of space. But it wasn't enough. The Xilthar kept coming, replacing losses faster than humanity could inflict them. Private Maria Santos, fighting in a desperate boarding action on a Xilthar bioship, realized the horrible truth. They were going to lose. Not today, maybe, but eventually. The enemy had too many ships, too many soldiers, too much mass to throw at them. Humanity could win 100 battles and still lose the war. On Earth, in a bunker beneath Geneva, the civilian government faced their nightmare choice. They had the weapons to end this: planet killers that could sterilize entire systems, biological agents that could wipe out the Xilthar across all their territory. But using them meant becoming the monsters the galaxy already feared. It meant proving that humanity was as dangerous as everyone thought. Then a message came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Kim, the human medic who had worked with Velkari scientists, had been collaborating with xenobiologists from a dozen species. They had been studying captured Zilthar tissue, trying to understand the hive mind that controlled them, and they had found something. The Zilthar weren't individuals. They were cells in a distributed organism, controlled by biological quantum entanglement across vast distances. Kill enough of the control nodes, disrupt the signal, and the whole species would collapse like a puppet with cut strings. It could be done with a tailored virus, one that targeted only the control mechanism. It would kill the Zilthar completely, but it would leave their consumed biomass intact. It was genocide, yes, but precise genocide. Surgical genocide. Earth's government gave the order. The virus was deployed from stealth ships that slipped through the battle. Within hours, Zilthar bioships began shutting down, their control nodes dying. Within days, every Zilthar in the galaxy was gone, reduced to inert organic matter. The threat that had consumed hundreds of worlds died in silence, without fanfare, ended by the same species that had saved the galaxy. But the victory felt hollow. Humanity had revealed its final card, the ability to exterminate entire species with precision and speed. The galaxy had seen human weapons before, but this was different. This was the power to erase civilizations completely, to make species extinct with the push of a button. And humans had that power all along, kept hidden until they needed it. The aftermath was messy and painful. Guardian Corps agreed to stand down and face trial for their coup. Some officers were imprisoned, some were pardoned. General Webb was sentenced to life imprisonment on Earth, and he accepted it without complaint. "I did what I thought was right," he said at his trial. "History will judge whether I was correct." The Galactic Council was reformed into something new, the Mutual Defense Assembly. It was based on shared protection rather than shared peace, because peace, everyone now understood, was only possible when defended. Dozens of species developed military forces. War crimes tribunals were established. Defense treaties were signed. The age of galactic innocence was over. Admiral Chen stood before the first meeting of the new assembly. Her hair had gone gray during the war, and she looked exhausted, but her voice was steady as she delivered the speech she had been preparing for months. "You asked Deathworlders for salvation, and we gave you survival. But survival has a price. We brought you the knowledge of war, the tools of violence, and the burden of hard choices. You can never unknow what you've learned. The age of innocence is over. The age of responsibility begins now." She paused, meeting the eyes of delegates from hundreds of worlds. Some looked at her with gratitude, some with fear, some with a mixture of both that was becoming the standard expression when aliens looked at humans. "We didn't descend you into chaos. We revealed that chaos was always one distress call away. The Zilthar could have come whether we existed or not. The only difference is, now you can defend yourselves. Now you know what you're capable of for good and ill. Now you have a choice. Let that knowledge destroy you, or use it to build something stronger than the peace you had before." The Assembly voted to grant humanity full membership. They also voted to establish the first integrated military academy, where young humans and aliens would train together. It wouldn't fix everything. The cultural gaps remained vast. Some species would never trust humanity. Some humans would never forgive themselves for what they'd brought to the galaxy. But it was a start. Private Maria Santos became one of the first instructors at the academy. She taught tactics, strategy, and the one lesson she thought mattered most. War is a tool. Like any tool, it can build or destroy. We're here to teach you how to use it wisely. How to make the hard choices and live with them after. How to protect without dominating. How to fight without becoming the thing you fight against. She looked at her students. Humans and aliens, predators and prey, all learning together. It shouldn't work. By every reasonable measure, it was impossible. But then again, the same could be said for the whole galaxy. On the last day of instruction before graduation, long-range sensors detected something at the galactic rim. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology, movement patterns that suggested intelligence, and transmission fragments that, when translated, suggested the Zilthar had been fleeing from something. Something worse. Chen received the report in her office. She was civilian now, retired from active service, but they still sent her the important stuff. She read it twice, then pulled up a comm link to her old friend Maria. "Did you see the report from the rim?" Chen asked. "Yeah, something big coming this way." Maria's voice was calm, but Chen could hear the underlying tension. "Are we ready?" Maria looked at her students through her office window. Young beings who 6 months ago didn't know how to hold a weapon, now running tactical drills with practiced ease. "No, but we're readier than we were, and we'll keep getting better." Chen smiled slightly. "That's what I like about you, Maria. You're an optimist." "I'm a human. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We'll survive whatever's coming. And now, so will they." The galaxy turned its sensors to the rim and waited. The age of peace was over. The age of survival had begun, and humanity, the species from the Deathworld, stood ready to teach the galaxy what that really meant. They had answered the SOS. They had saved the galaxy and broken it in the same breath. They had given gentle species the knowledge of violence and the burden of choice. It wasn't what anyone had expected. It wasn't what anyone had wanted, but it was what everyone needed. And when the next threat came, because there was always a next threat, the galaxy would be ready. Not as prey, not as victims, but as people who had learned to stand. Because that's what humans did best. They taught others to survive.